Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, and this is a show where we hang out, we talk about games, board games, role-playing games, card games, and we talk about things that excite us and make us want to play games at the table. And the goal here is to chase beauty, chase beautiful things, to do our best to invest in the world and try and become better people, players, and game masters. Today we're talking about a game that is very close to my heart. It's a game that I wrote, I created the system for based off other systems. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing some player insights into how to play Clash. But first, good morning to Padre and Tink and John Doom. I'm also doing a lot of reading. I'm very excited. We are going to be doing a deep dive into the Infinity system by Modifius. I'm a huge fan of the miniature game. I actually think that for a non-rank and flank game, which is what I really love, I love rank and flank games. Currently, my favorites are Oathmark and Conquest Last Argument of Kings. My God, I love Conquest Last Argument of Kings. My favorite miniature game is Infinity. And I love the world, I love the setting. John Doom, imagine basically the Peter Hamilton Pandora Star Judas Unchained style universe, but as a miniature game. And they put out the role-playing game by Modifius 2D20, and it is crunchy AF, and I love it. So we're going to talk about all the cool things that Infinity does. I may have gone overboard. I think I'm only missing 2 books now, and those 2 books are going to be very expensive to find. They're the 2 that just seem to be out of print at this point. So if anyone finds a copy of the Infinity Game Master's Guide, let me know. I will PayPal you money to get it at a decent price. Hey Mark, good to see you. Padre, I have not tried the Old World. I love the Old World, and I love Warhammer Fantasy. I've got so much Oathmark, and I've got so much Conquest, and maybe have more Conquest on the way, that I don't need another rank and flank. And while I love Warhammer, Oathmark's realm building aspect and Conquest's miniature line, Conquest miniatures, if you haven't checked them out, Padre, check out Last Argument of Kings. Imagine, if you will, a larger scale rank and flank game that the miniatures remind me of the quality that we used to see in not Corvus Belli. Who did? Oh, Rackham. The quality in Rackham from the old Confrontation game. And the minis will serve dual purpose for a rank and flank and a skirmish game. The lore is amazing, and they've somehow taken a miniatures game and combined it with the original L5R style of storytelling, where as you play games, you can submit results, and those results change the story and the characters in the game. I have my undead army, and I've got some goblins and dwarves to build that I have subjugated, and they will be fielded with my army. I'm also very excited about this. This just came in yesterday. Pine Box Middle School. We will be doing a review of this on the show. Imagine, if you will, Scooby-Doo and Stranger Things as a Savage World setting. And speaking of Savage Worlds, I have started Act 3 in my Horror at Headstone Hill home campaign that Mark and Tink both play in, and last night was brutal. They kicked open the door to a barn and found 18 cultists, 3 of which were wild cards, an aspen tree gone wrong, and a trio of prairie dogs strapped with nitro. And the group pulled it out with Mark's character at 3 wounds, Tink's character nigh untouchable the entire game, and our explorer and our hex slinger incapacitated. So 1 more wound would have taken Mark's bounty hunter out of the game, or out of the combat, and then everyone would have just dogpiled on our witch. But dice tell a story, and that story was not today, Satan. So anyway, lots of fun playing Savage Worlds. Tomorrow night I have my Savage Rifts game. It's the inaugural session, so either it's going to go amazing or I will be asked not to run Savage Rifts. So I'm hoping it's the first one. Yeah, the Aspen Tree gone wrong rolled a 33 for damage on a D12 and a D10. No, he didn't get hit by that guy. It was the Irishman who shot him with a Colt Frontier, and the dice just kept exploding. 2d6 got a result of 33 points of damage. Patty. So, we covered the overview of Jackals, where it came from, and kind of the rules overview on Tuesday. So today I'm just going to do, again, a brief explanation for players why you may want to be excited about playing Clash. So the first thing is the die resolution system. While it uses percentile dice, which is, common in Chaosium games, Warhammer Fantasy uses percentile dice, Zweihander uses percentile dice, a couple other great games, such as, just drop my percentile dice, such as Eclipse Phase. The nice thing about percentile dice is you always know what you need to roll. Your character has a skill of 65, you know you need to get a 65 or under. Criticals are a little bit more complicated than one number on the die. You have more chances at doing that, right? Criticals occur in Jackals when you have two numbers that match, when the two dice on your percentile dice match. So 11, 12, 22, 33, 44, 66, 77, 88, 99, and 100, because the zeros match. Now, if you roll, if you would have succeeded on the die roll, that's a critical success. If you would have failed on the die roll, that's a fumble. That's 90% of the game right there. But some things for players to keep in mind when you're playing Clash that I think are very important. One, don't go fishing for skill rolls, but anytime you're allowed to make a skill check, make sure you mark that on your character sheet. Like many other great D100 games, you don't get experience points per se. You get better at the things that you do. So if you use a skill, you have a chance of that skill going up. And the way that works is any skill that you use during a session, at the end of the session, you roll against. And if you fail, meaning you roll higher than your current skill, you learn something and your skill goes up. So usually at the end of the session, when I say it's time for passive advancements, most people go, oh crap, what did I roll? So I think number one, keep track of the skills that you use. The second thing is, get attached to your character, but understand that most of the Clash games, Urban Decay being the exception, the presentation of the game is that the character you start with won't be the character that you finish with. Now, that doesn't mean that Jackals is brutal, although it can be. It's a little bit more forgiving than, say, RuneQuest or Call of Cthulhu. But the idea is that your character will eventually age out or retire, and you're going to pick up a new character. Another thing that I like to say, especially with Jackals, is the fact that a lot of people come to Clash thinking, I will either be a fighter or I will be a spellcaster. And one of the things that I think makes Jackals and Clash unique is the fact that rituals, or rites, what we call spells in the game, they take Clash points, but rarely take your action. Excuse me. Thanks, Mark. It is glorious. John Doom, when you come down to visit, we will play a game of Jackals if you want. So most of the ritualist paths, thank you, Mark, allow you to be a fighter, somebody who can adventure as well as being a ritualist. Now you can craft the bookwormy ritualist, but remember this is for Amboria and is its own thing, and for Jackals you're in the Bronze Age. Yes, everyone can be a magic user in Jackals, and in fact some of the most potent fighters are actually ritualists. So when you go into it, assume that you want to at least look at the rights, even if that doesn't necessarily is your normal play style. Because of the way clash points work, always pay attention. You'll actually find that other players are paying attention to your turn far more than in other games, because you always have to be ready to respond if a creature attacks you. And as you get higher in skill, you'll start unlocking talents that give you even more things to do. One of the ones that a lot of people like is Interpose. It allows you to spend clash points to jump in between and take the hit for someone else. But it does mean that you're going to have to be paying a lot more attention on turns that are not yours, especially on the monster turns. At the start of the round, you're also going to have to collaborate with your team to see what the initiative order should be. Because initiative order is flexible in Jackals. It basically resolves into creatures that go before the monsters, creatures that go in between monster slots, and creatures that go after the monsters. You need to speak up in Jackals. I know we've all been in that situation, or in Clash, I should say. We've all been in that situation in a game where somebody takes a hit and goes, well, that's it, I'm dead. And the healer of the party is like, well, why didn't you say something? That holds true for Jackals, and we'll get to the healing part of it in a bit. But it also holds true for the initiative order, because remember, you get your clash points back at the start of your turn. If you don't have clash points, you just have to stand there and take any hits that come your way. So speak up, say, hey, I'm at 0 clash points and I'm engaged with 3 Takan. There's a good chance that JM, being the sadistic bastard that he is going to attack me this, as soon as his monsters get to go. So I need to have my clash points. Also, don't be worried that you may be completely overwhelmed in Jackals. One of the features of modern D20 games is that very rarely are you outnumbered. The goal is far less combat as war and more combat as either sport, or as we see it maybe in martial arts movies where people kind of pair off until they start getting whittled down. And that's because in a D20 game, action economy is so is wedded to a razor's edge. You know, if you add a couple of extra actions on one side or the other, that side has a distinct tactical advantage. In Clash, because of the way clash points work, you can start a fight outnumbered 2 or even 3 to 1, and it may be fairly balanced. So I always like to recommend, make sure you are taking out, focus your fire, take out as many people as you can in a round. Because if you leave something around with even 1 wound left, they get their full actions. And you start taking penalties the more wounds you've taken. Also, the smaller the enemy pool, the more likely you are to have enough clash points to react to all of your attacks, as well as having clash points to spend on your turn to do that extra damage. So it's a bit of a finesse game. Do I save these 2 clash points to react later in the round, or do I try to do that extra d6 of damage to ensure that the creature is dead? I often like to tell players, because the way criticals work in Jackals, you don't get extra dice, you just do max damage, that anytime you roll a critical, it's probably worthwhile spending the 2 points for a power attack, because that die is maxed as well, and it's just a flat 6 points of damage. Yes, 1 or 2 against 30 is totally in line with the genre. Especially if you read like the old histories where modern day historians say that the numbers of the opposing side were always inflated to make it look like you won a dramatic battle. What are some other advice that I could give to players from the player side? Brain just died because I had to take a cup of coffee. Oh, Monsters action economy is weird compared to player economy. Be aware of this. Monsters have an attack line. So I built some AI into Monsters in Clash, and I frankly love it. It's something I will unabashedly say I stole from 13th Age. 13th Age builds monsters so that the single D20 roll often helps the GM narrate what attack the monster is using. So with Clash, a monster will have several attack lines based off their combat skill, and the GM is allowed to use any of the attack lines equal to or less than the die roll. Most GMs that I know just take the line from the, take the attack from the attack line that they rolled. But some of these attack lines have multiple attacks. They chain. So if the first one hits, they get to roll a second one. If the second one hits, sometimes they even get to roll a third or a fourth. What's important for players to know is, one, if you win any of those individual clashes, it stops the attack line from progressing, which is huge. It can turn what is potentially 4 attacks into 1 or 2 or 0 if you win the initial clash roll. But it also means that some monsters you need to save extra clash points for, because they may attack you more than once. Something I hope to write a blog post about and actually like work out a little bit better. I think I might write as a blog post in April for the patrons and just give it out and then make it available for free online, is how healing after combat works. Because as soon as combat ends, you check for scarring. But any magical healing delivered during the fight prevents the scarring. You only check what's at the end. And I've had several combats where players have tried to, looking at several of my players that I know are watching, oh, don't kill that guy yet so that I can cast a healing spell on you this turn so you don't have to check for scarring. And usually that's my, all right, we're just going to wrap this combat up now, because that's not the way the game was designed. But I realized it's a flaw in the way I wrote the rules, and I have some ways to tinker with that for players. And as Mark pointed out, that is kind of where I was going to end with this, especially in Jackals and Emboria. Not so much in Urban Decay, but Jackals, Emboria, and Vendom. Too late, no backseas. Jackals, Emboria, and Vendom. Do not underestimate the survival skill, because travel is a huge component of the game. And the way travel works in Jackals is you have a score called Metal. Represents your ruggedness, your durability, your endurance. And if you fail travel rolls, your metal drops. And it's very difficult to get metal back in the middle of an adventure. Now you may be saying like, well, who cares, Jam? Why would I care about that? Well, remember how I said there were 2 pools to represent damage? You have your wounds, which very rarely change. Most people start with between 12 and 18 wounds. And then you have your valor, and your valor is that fighting spirit, that hit point buffer. Well, your valor is calculated at the start of every fight. Your valor is equal to whatever your current metal value is, times 3 if you're unwounded, or times 2 if you're lightly wounded, or times 1 if you're really badly wounded. So if your metal starts at 11 and you start a fight completely healthy, you have that 33 points of fighting spirit buffer. But if you took 4 points of damage from travel because of how tough the survival rules were, well, now instead of 33, you're only getting 21. And that's a good hit or two that you're not going to be able to take before you hit your wounds. So yeah, that is oh, womp womp. John, remind me to give you an extra Benny for that one on Friday, because that joke is spectacular. I will say, a lot of the jokes last night that I gave bennies out for, gave players bennies for, were a little wooden, kind of sappy, but overall, I think they got to kind of the root of the experience that the players were in. So that's it for our look at Jackals from the player side. I hope that's helpful. On Tuesday, we're actually going to look at, on the GM side, kind of some things to keep in mind as a GM and how to design new monsters for your Clash game. So, yeah, so no, that wasn't helpful, Molly, or no, your puns, Molly. You don't have high ground anymore from your puns with your cat-based puns that you dropped last night. This is why you don't get as many bennies as the rest of the players, Molly. So anyway, thanks to everybody. We're going to be rolling out the new Patreon levels, hopefully today for tomorrow morning. And we are going to, the new levels are going to have new art for each level. They're going to have slightly different reward tiers. As I said, we're getting rid of the $3 tier, but that's fine if you're at there. I'm just not going to make it available to anyone new. And I'm really looking forward to kind of this new era of Iconic. So thank you to everyone who follows, who supports, who just comes and hangs out. I appreciate it. It kind of keeps me motivated to go do this. I have to go inside now and write more stuff for Savage World things I'm working on, which I'm very excited about. Oh, and if you haven't checked it out, this is shameful or shameless promoting. Fast, Fun, Furious February is going on right now. And our very own John Doom has released something on drive-thru for Fast, Fun, Furious February. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat. It's called The Kind, or Seventh Kind. And if you can, go check it out. It's available on drive-thru. It's at a great price. It's an adventure. He's updating it from what I hear. And I don't think he expected me to do this, but I'm very glad to do it. So, John, congratulations, man. Let's hopefully this thing takes off. So that's it for today. We'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about Clash on Tuesday, and then on Thursday next week, I'm going to do a review of a new Chaosium product. So I think I can do it then. I'll have to double check when the embargo is up. But if not, we're going to jump into our Infinity, our look at Infinity. So thank you all to everybody who showed up. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. This has been Behind the Screen. I am JM. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.